Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have the fabulous Ricardo de Los Angeles here with us today for a little cafecito. We're going to sip some tea, sip some coffee, and let's have a good time. Got water here because we got to stay hydrated here at Latinx in Animation. And we're just going to start off with some introductions. My name is Maria Zelia. I am with the wonderful Latinx in Animation team. And we're so excited to have Ricky here today. If he wants to introduce himself, give us his name, his title, and the big top secret. What's the favorite Nickelodeon character for you to draw?
Hi, I'm Ricky. I'm a character designer at Nickelodeon Animation Studios on the show Casa Grandes. And honestly, I think the Ninja Turtles count as a Nickelodeon character, right? I don't work on the Ninja Turtle show, but I still enjoy, I've been drawing them since I was a kid, so I still kind of enjoy drawing them. And in so many different styles, like you can always draw them in different ways and they're still fun.
They're so much fun. I completely count them as a Nickelodeon character.
Turtle power.
Yeah, turtle power. Turtle power, pizza. Pizza is power. You know, it all connects.
Yeah.
Awesome. If you can give us some insight into your journey, you know, how did you break into character design? You know, did your journey through school help you with that? Is there like that pivotal moment that converted you to be like, yes, I will be drawing characters for the rest of my life?
All right, Ricky's life journey, chapter 1. Wow, my journey. Okay. Well, the cliche, started drawing when I was a kid, like every other kid, and loved it, was immersed in it. It was a great form of expression and fun. And, you know, you get lost in it, you get lost in drawing. And I grew up in the early 90s, so I had a lot of like influences and inspirations like Disney Animation, all the 90s films, the early Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network shows, the original 90s Ninja Turtle show, which my brother and I were obsessed with. One week, one Christmas, we got a Ninja Turtle Christmas. We got PJs, toys, candy. It was ridiculous. So yeah, just drawing from a young age and always like learning, like always finding inspiration in cartoons and animation and coloring books, painting and coloring books. I didn't really have like a formal education. I think my parents only they enrolled me in like one community class, and it was like a general drawing class. I remember drawing a van. I was drawing the Ninja Turtles van, actually. And the teacher kind of like looked at it and he pulled me over to the window and pointed to a van outside, like, that's a real van. That was interesting. I remember a guy next to me was like, he was much older than me and he was like drawing like this really beautiful sword. But other than that, I just drew on my own time. I copied off cereal boxes, off coloring books. You know, I would go through phases where I would like different properties, like properties. I sound like a corporate hack. Like The Lion King. I remember copying off the coloring books and any school project that involved art. Like I was game. I was like, I threw myself in 100%. Like if there was a history project, like illustrate this moment in history, I'm like, yes, like it's gonna be awesome. And I would always try to like replicate like a style, like maybe a Disney style or something I saw on a cartoon show. I remember one time we were asked to illustrate some story moments from Charlotte's Web because we were reading Charlotte's Web, and oh, that was great. It was really cool to bring what I read to life. Except that they gave us like really crappy paper. It was like I think it was like recycled cardboard because it was so rough.
Yeah.
And then the pencils we used were not very good. They were always like sharp. I think they were like H pencils,
Mm-hmm.
which would make it really hard to erase on their really crappy public school erasers. And it would like go through it would go through the paper.
And did you know that, or did you just like learn that as you get older? You're like, oh, that was really crappy paper.
Yeah, I learned that as I went, and like at the same time when I was like, you know, learning to draw and trying to grow my skills, I was learning a lot about different material and media
Mm-hmm.
and charcoal and pencils and like what each one did. And that was just all through experimentation. Like my parents had like almost no hand in like, you should try this 6B pencil. You'll get a nice thick loose line. No, that was all just kind of like learning through art books, I think.
Mm-hmm.
How to draw in pastels or how to paint in watercolor. And they would have these beautiful, like laid out, almost Pinterest like pictures of like all the materials listed and then like these beautiful art studios. And I remember I would like drool like at those pictures of like the beautiful pencils and brushes and like, oh, I want that. But I would just, probably the most I could get was like maybe some yard sale finds.
Mm-hmm.
And that was awesome actually. My parents, art supplies are expensive. So I'm really happy that my parents, supported me in the sense that they bought me art supplies, even if it was like yard sale finds, like, tubes of paint and I would play around with it and try to replicate. I was always like trying to emulate what I saw like in animation or in art of books or, uh, mostly like stuff that I saw, picture books. Um, I took art classes in middle school and high school, but that was like more, it wasn't like, they were definitely like foundational, because we were drawing to, we were learning like 3-point perspective, drawing the cube, shading the cube, drawing a fruit basket. Uh, all that stuff is, I mean, it's kind of boring to me now. Like I wouldn't want to do it, but maybe I'd make it like more stylized or a cartoon or something. But I, looking back, like that was really building my foundation in drawing, starting with the basics, like basic shapes, basic shading. And I remember one project where we had to copy an image, but we had to start it upside down.
Oh, wow.
You ever done that?
No, I haven't done it. That's really cool.
And supposedly the theory is that it actually comes out more accurate by doing that. Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've heard like the whole practice of making the master copies so you can like try to color match and really get those values on. But that's really cool that they started you at those like sort of ground level foundations that I think sometimes people forget. Did you feel like all of that helped you? Like, did you go to university? Did it help you like prepare those portfolios as you were rising up the ranks to land your jobs?
It definitely just added like a dedicated time to be able to practice. And I think that's really just so much practice, so many hours of drawing. I wish I could have kept track of how many hours I've spent drawing the past 30 years. Wow, 30 years. But also learning from other artists, like just watching them. There weren't a lot of other artists like in my town that I could like learn from. I mostly just learned through books, anything on TV that I could find. There used to be this guy drawing with cartooning with Bruce Blitz, and he had a very, very almost kind of Casagrande style. And he'd break it down, circles, squares, triangles, and then there was another guy called like Pappy. He was like kind of like a hillbilly guy, and like, and it was kind of a cool show because he was almost like a Bob Ross because he was like, now we're gonna draw a little like, a nose with the eyes, and he would do very basic shapes, and he would draw with crayon, and he would do it all in one go. It was kind of fascinating,
Awesome.
actually.
Yeah.
And then at the end of his show, he would show this virtual art gallery of art submissions that kids who watch the show that you can send in your artwork. But mostly just a lot of like observation, trying to emulate artists. Like, of course, I was a big fan of Glenn Keane,
Mm-hmm.
and I tried so hard to draw like him, to find pencils that like matched that like thickness that he had. The Art of Tarzan, the Tarzan Chronicles was like one of the best Christmas gifts I ever got, because anything related to animation, because to me, the animation art form, like the way that the artists produce their images and the way they approach storytelling was just so magical to me. So and Glenn Keane's drawings were the most magical drawings to me. And so getting that book was just insane. And like, I just ate it up. Like I read, just reading about the thought process, like the journey of making those films and the thought process behind the characters. You know, it just made it more than just drawing for drawing's sake. It was, there was intent behind it. Um, so yeah, always like just learning from artists like that and the art of animation. Barnes and Noble's like I'd always go to the books section of every department store and try to find something that like piqued my interest because I was interested in art, I was interested in comics, movies. I mean, this is the Latino film festival, right? So I was making movies around age 11. I started using my dad's camera and making my own movies because I loved like the Spielberg era, you know, like Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, all these this other different medium. And that's why I liked animation because it was film, it was theater. I love to act and do impressions. I was a big Jim Carrey fan. Music and drama and art all into one. That's what animation was to me. It was like the best art form because it had all of my interests wrapped into one. So to answer your question, around age 10, I guess I decided I wanted to be a Disney animator. I kind of understood the concept of what an animator does in the animation process. So that was like my guiding compass to like be to get to Disney. And a part of that journey was going to CalArts. It's crazy to think that now there's so many like resources and just points of information that you can find about animation and how it works, you know, from professionals and amateurs and everything in between. But back then, there was very limited stuff on the internet because it was, you know, kind of just starting out. And so everything was from books and like the behind the scenes stuff on DVDs for Disney films. But I remember I begged my mom to buy me this book called The Art of Animation by Christopher Hart. And it kind of took you through the process of character design, like different age groups, shape language. And at the very end, it had examples of production work like storyboarding and character design and layout. And then it had an interview with Roger Allers, the co-director of The Lion King. And towards the end, they asked him like, well, what kind of schooling do you recommend for someone who wants to get into animation? And he mentioned one other school that I don't remember. And the other school was CalArts. So, and I'd heard CalArts before, like someone that my dad worked with recommended CalArts as well. So I looked into it as much as I could find information on it. And at my high school career center, I got the little information booklets and I learned about the character animation program. And after comparing all the other schools, CalArts seemed like the best route. One, because its founding was helped by Walt Disney and the alumni list was insane. And I'm like, Glenn Keane went there. That's where I'm going. And so I set my sights on that. And I went to community college. I went to Allen Hancock College and took life drawing classes and some animation classes and more film production classes. But I think it was after I got my portfolio reviewed by CalArts. It was like a portfolio day at Art Center. And up until this point, you know, I've gotten a pat on the head, a pat on the back. You're such a great artist. You're so good, you know. And when I got my portfolio reviewed there, this was the first time I'd really gotten my portfolio reviewed and critiqued. And the recruiter there just tore it apart. Like he literally made these faces like, as he flipped through. and my whole family was there too, watching this happen with me. It was a familial experience. And but he would point out to things like, ooh, do more of this, like these like little like quick gesture drawings of like animals or people and stuff. And he really recommended me I experiment with more media, you know, because I think all I had was sketches on white paper, you know, pen and ink drawings. it makes me remember this quote by Glenn Keane. I keep bringing him up, huh? You won't get better until you get broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I got broken that day. And I actually, that was the only review that I got. I didn't go to any other recruiter that day because I think I just had my mind set on CalArts. And maybe I just kind of couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with uh, I was just trying to process, everything that the recruiter told me. And it was kind of intimidating too, because there were hundreds of other students with their portfolios, and it was the first time that I was kind of surrounded by other artists that were at my level or superseded it. And they were coming in with these big old black portfolios, right?
Giant ones, yeah.
Yeah, big old drawings. And I literally came in with my like 8.5 by 11 manila folder with my sketches all stuffed in. That was
that culture shock when you go in.
Yeah. I'm like, whoa, the art world. They're so cool. Here's a guy from a small town with his manila folder.
There's something to be said about that though, because that is very true. Like people bring up Glenn Keane a lot, but that's what growing up, a lot of us, we thought that's how you became the Disney animator. You became someone in this industry. You have to have the loose sketches. You have to have the right materials. You learn through every book that you can. And when you come, you get that reality check of, oh, this is completely different than what it actually is, because there wasn't those resources out there. And now we have them. We have like these cafecitos, we have panels, we have all these things. I mean, MS Paint now has 3D options, and that makes me feel like so old. But that's so cool that, you had your experience at CalArts where they were kind of more constructive. Did you get in on that first round, or did you have to go back and revise your portfolio?
I went and revised it. I think this was close to my senior year, so I didn't go directly to like a 4-year. Sorry, I keep fidgeting. I went to community college, and so I took life drawing there, and some 2D animation classes and film production, and maybe some like general eds. But the life drawing class was pivotal for my portfolio development for CalArts because, well, one, it was actually the first time I'd done figure drawing, like nude figure drawing at all. So the first 2 classes, I was kind of nervous trying a new model. I was like, no.
Class, you're jaded. You're just like, let's go, let's get the grade.
But I'm just like, I get creatively bored. Like I got really tired of drawing in Conti and on newsprint. And I knew I was in the back of my mind, the CalArts recruiter, experimentation, trying new things. So I was buying different types of paper. I was using charcoal, pastels, blending pastel with ink and all this crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. And thankfully my instructor, she saw what I was doing and she thought it was okay and let me kind of keep on going, because her class was a bit structured. Mm-hmm. And also there in that class, I learned how to critique and take critique. So we would get up there every 2 months and share our work and talk about it a bit. And the class would give their notes or kind of their thoughts. And most of it was constructive. We were learning how to give constructive feedback, like not throw tomatoes at each other or anything. So that was cool. And so in January 2005, January 2005 is when I submitted my portfolio to CalArts, my final portfolio. And that was really stressful because, they have all these requirements like label with your name, the media, the title, the dimensions. I had to buy these tiny little like labels that I hand wrote all those details on and stuck them on the corner of each piece. And it was a big 18 by 24 flat portfolio thing. I remember I had to like package it, and like my mom, I remember helping me like package it up and go and deliver it. And then long story short, like 2-3 months later in March is a magical month. It's the month of my birthday, and also like the month where I've like gotten job offers and got my acceptance letter. It's weird. So when I got my acceptance letter to CalArts, I was at a friend's house and my mom called me. He's like, "You got to come over now to your house, to your home." So I go home and I see the CalArts letter there, and so like I open it and I read it aloud. "We're pleased to inform you that you've been accepted." As soon as I read the word accepted, I screamed. I screamed like a banshee and like kind of probably did a dance or ran around, and it was a magical moment. I couldn't believe it, and truly grateful because I know how difficult it is to get there. When I started CalArts and I met some upperclassmen, I know that they told me that they'd tried like 5 times to get in. Man, it makes me feel worse because CalArts was hard. It was a lot of firsts for me. It was my first time being away from home. It was my first time being around other artists like at my level day to day. It was incredibly intimidating and hard. Got homesick a lot, like depressed. So it was really hard to focus like on making my short films and just go. It was just a really transformational time, you know? You're kind of trying to learn like what you believe or what you don't believe anymore. And your beliefs are challenged and you're also trying to like keep up artistically and creatively. And I don't know, maybe the reason why I was so down all the time is because I wasn't getting enough vitamin D. Like
Maybe it's getting stuck in the studio the whole time. We all become like 10 shades paler as Latinos, and I know I got it like way paler because you were stuck in the studio during college.
yeah, and CalArts is a giant box of a
Mhm.
school. Like it's one big building and it's got 4 levels. So the school is all indoors. Like supposedly the theory is that it was sort of built as a hospital in case the school didn't work out. So you have these long corridors, like long hallways with white walls. And yeah. Luckily, like I worked in the this kind of outdoor building outside the main building called the Lodge, and it kind of like looked like a trailer.
Mhm.
And but that was cool because there was like a little patio picnic table outside and the green hill, and so you could go outside and eat and get some sun. So that was nice.
So you got your
Um,
nice balance. That was pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, and dodgeball. There was a dodgeball club every Friday.
So you're doing what every art school student hasn't done so far. You had some in nature, you had some sports to keep you activated, and you had your drawings. Like that was perfect.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, you said something that which I think is really cool. It was hard. And I feel like, people talk about their journeys and then there are people that go to community college. There are people that take the motions to get there. And they find out like once they hit college, they think it's going to be all fine, sunshine and rainbows. And it's not because then now you have to go through the program. And how do you feel like this whole experience prepared you to land your first gig? Or how did that journey go for you?
Hmm. Well, even after CalArts, it was still kind of another journey to get to this point. Um, Post CalArts, I call them the lost years because I didn't have anything lined up.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't land any internships in all of my 4 years when I was there. I did apply, but like I said, like I feel like my mental health kind of impeded. I just was really self-conscious, so my work was not at the level that it needed to be or what it could have been. Um, so after CalArts, I kind of moved back. I moved back home. I moved back home for about 2 years, I think. Met my wife though, so that worked out. Yeah, I just took a break, because it was a really intense 4 years, and I had done graphic design in high school, so I had already kind of started freelancing like late high school, very minimal work, but I went to work with my dad, who was working he was like a manager at a Mexican restaurant chain. And so I was doing like ads, like graphic design for advertisements, coupon design, uh, I redesigned their little parrot mascot. His name was what was his name? Oh, his name was Ricky Rocco.
Perfect.
He was like a little green parrot. I wish I have a picture of him. I should carry a picture of him in my wallet. Here's Ricky Rocco. So I did that for a bit, and then during CalArts, I had piqued an interest in caricature art, mostly. So there was kind of like this connection where I was really into Eric Goldberg's animation, the animator who animated the Genie, and his influence for the Genie was Al Hirschfeld, whose work I had sort of seen because and recognized. So when I went and looked up books at CalArts, which had a treasure trove of Al Hirschfeld books, I checked out every one. Man, I was blown away by his simplicity and elegance of line, and his ability to capture someone with minimal lines. Like that blew my mind. That I tried to my third year film called Pizzaiolo about a pizza chef. I designed him in a way kind of like in an Al Hirschfeld style because I really loved the Rhapsody in Blue sequence in Fantasia 2000. So I was really influenced by that. And at CalArts, every year we would have a character animation show where each student would put up their work on the walls. And then there'd be like drinks and food, and we'd set up tables and art horses and chairs for the student body, and we would draw free caricatures of students, and it would go on for hours. So you imagine like drinks, caricatures. It was a really good time.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned to kind of draw with people looking over my shoulder, and to draw fast, to kind of channel all that nervous energy, that social anxiety, and just put it into the artwork. So that's what I started doing after CalArts too. I'm just doing a pause because I know that I'm like just kind of rambling.
You're good.
But I credit my dad going into caricatures because when I was at home, he saw that I was struggling to find work. And he's like, he's always been like very industrious and entrepreneurial. My parents are immigrants. They're from Cuernavaca and Mazatlan, Sinaloa. Mm-hmm. So they've always been working, being entrepreneurs. My mom cleaned houses, and now she's a cake maker. She has her own cake making business. Like, she's so good. And my dad, he's always like been into technology and like just always like looking forward. And so he saw that for me, like, you have a skill, put it to use. And he suggested, hey, why don't you go draw caricatures at the local Lompoc swap meet? And I'm like, the swap meet, like the flea market? Like, Dad, no one wants to buy art or caricatures at the swap meet. They're going there to save money, not to buy drawings. So I tried it, and I sold my caricatures for like dirt cheap. Like, it's kind of embarrassing, actually. I think I started it at $3 for a black and white and $5 for a color, because I was just testing the waters. I was very self-conscious, like my art wasn't like worth buying, So I was dealing with a lot of self-consciousness at that time. And it was kind of a hit, I guess, in the sense that being at a swap meet and you're the only one drawing caricatures, you're offering this kind of novelty. I think I made $50 that day, put gas in my car.
That's it. As long as you make gas money, you're good. So starting out, that's the biggest hurdle to do. Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of convinced me to kind of keep going. And I tried to come every weekend, and it was a lot of work, a little bit of, besides the drawing part, it was kind of being an entrepreneur. Like, wait, I need a tent. I need a cash box. I need an easel. I need, you start thinking about all these things that you need. And luckily I was able to find like a resource from other caricature artists online, someone I remember printed like a PDF, like essentially how to be a caricature artist, like, and do like events and things like that. And like, here are the things you need. I remember one important thing he recommended: bring like $100 in dollar bills, like $100 cash in dollar bills to have for change. That was a good tip.
That's so cool. And then, so from these caricatures, did it inspire you to focus more on character design as breaking into the industry, or, as you were setting up and sort of marketing yourself as this caricature artist, did it just one thing lead to the next?
Yeah, sometimes you're like on a linear path, but you're kind of doing this to get there. So I did graphic design for a bit. I designed logos. I designed like mascots for sports teams. I think one important thing was I got like a website, or like whatever fad was happening, like Blogger. I had a Blogger, made sure my work got out there always, that it was always discoverable. So I made a website, and I was always updating it, and I got so much work from that. Like, people just kind of Googling and discovering my work and getting emails. That was the best. That was really great. But also like searching for work too. Like, I knew that my work wasn't at a level where I could like do studio work.
Mm-hmm.
So I would try to like kind of be more client based. Like, I will do work for you for your business or something. So I'd go on Craigslist and see maybe like job openings, like need an artist for a logo design or something. And if it was like something like knowing like my level and knowing like I could do that. So I just kind of just throw out a net and see like who would bite. So at the same time I was, doing caricatures, I was like kind of growing that business a bit and trying to find my audience. So I made business cards and, put all my contact info, made sure I had samples on my website, and I started getting gigs. I started getting like private parties, like birthday parties, drawing at birthday parties, drawing at wedding receptions. But after 2 years, there wasn't a big market for that, because most of the people that lived in my area were like working class. So like having a caricature artist at your party is kind of expensive. I mean, like, if you want to get paid fairly. So eventually I knew that everything was leading me to like having to move back to LA, because I needed a bigger income to pay back my student loans and pay for my expenses. So actually my first job in Los Angeles post college was as a caricature artist at the LA Zoo.
So cool.
With this company called Goofy Faces.
Mm-hmm.
And this was different because I was used to drawing at parties where like you're automatically paid for the hours that you're there, and people just come to you, they sit, it doesn't matter how many you draw, whoever wants to get drawn can get drawn. But in retail caricatures, you have to like bring people to you, because you get paid per drawing that you make.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah.
You kind of had to heckle people. I hated doing that. Like, hey, you want a caricature? You want a caricature? You look like you could get a caricature. Come on. That was tough. And then around the same time when I was there, one of my CalArts friends, she was interning at Disney Consumer Products in Glendale. So it was kind of nearby. And she said, hey, you want a tour? And I'm like, oh, sure. And so she gave me a tour, and that was kind of mind-blowing because I didn't even know that this division of Disney existed. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, of course someone has to draw those Disney characters or Disney princesses that go on the backpacks.
Yep.
And I was like, that was so mind-blowing. And they had an opening for an internship for this thing called the Think Tank. And so she forwarded my name and put my portfolio together, and I was very lucky because they were looking for someone who was out of school about a year or two, and I think I had like was maybe like a month or 2 or 3 out of that time frame, And so when I went to interview, I was like, man, I was scrambling to put all my work together. I had like a little like black portfolio with sleeves and stuff. And I remember like minutes before my interview, when I like in my car, I was like still editing my portfolio. I was like swapping out images, like, okay, let's move this one next to this. And like, no, take that out. That's not strong enough. And so I get there, I interview with like 3 people, and one of the art directors, he walks me around and to meet the other artists or the other art directors, and like three of the artists there, Eric Tan, Stefan Cardos, John T. Quinn the third, or just John Quinn. I followed their work on Blogger at the time. So that was really cool. I was like, whoa, I love your work, and I'm getting to meet them. And John Quinn, he knew of my work because when I got introduced to him, he's like, oh, I know Ricky. Yeah, he's got my vote. And man, that was so affirming to to get that kind of encouragement from people you look up to. It's like you really believe that you had potential and you had a shot. I think it's really important to, encourage potential people who are coming up, and because it's even though like I'm kind of like maybe, I think at that time everything was still visceral. I'm not trying to say I'm like jaded or anything, but everything was so visceral. So getting a compliment like that just meant the world to me. So, I always try to, encourage people and give praise where it's due, because it, a single word of encouragement can mean so much for someone. So I barely got into that internship by slim margin. I got really lucky. And so I was an intern for about 7 months in the think tank group. And that group was really unique from like other internships, because other internships, like a character art internship, you would just be focused on doing character art. But in the think tank, there was other people, like a multimedia person, a marketing person, 2 other artists, a video editor. And we were all like in charge with developing like IP for the creative group. Like, hey, we have this idea. The big project we worked on was Descendants. Mm-hmm. Descendants on Disney Channel.
Yeah,
it was like when we got there, it was still being developed, but as like a toy line. It started as a toy line first, and then they wanted to like develop it further. So like we came up with this pitch Bible where it was like the descendants of these Disney villains would like have their own social media, and you can interact with them, and there'd be this overarching story. And on top of that, we would like help design logos or just help with other like initiatives for the company. It's like almost like we were like a little incubator, like a little lab. If they didn't have time to develop stuff, like we would do it.
That's cool. Sounds like a great diverse experience, like kickstart your next path, your next career move, I should say, after.
Yeah, that was my first professional internship. Mm-hmm. And I was I think 25. So I graduated in 2009. So 2 years after I graduated from CalArts, I got my first internship. So that was encouraging. And it really gave me like, it really exposed me to like the corporate world, the corporate environment, mm-hmm. how to act, how to network, how to be professional, how to work with others, collaborate. There were like some long hours, stressful hours at times. But I loved all the intern events, like ice cream socials, just fun events, fun events. And the campus was really cool too, and it was just so great. It was just so great being immersed in like the Disney creative culture, and being so close to Imagineering, and knowing the history of that street, because a lot of those buildings are pretty old, and And in some of those buildings, they produced like my favorite movies, you know, in these like warehouse buildings. When the Disney animators got kicked out of their off the studio lot and into like onto Flower Street, and I was like, that's the building where they animated Aladdin and The Lion King. Mm-hmm. So that was a really inspirational time, and it was really great for that experience. And I made a lot of connections. Like I just did my best. I just worked really hard to just say yes to anything I could, and to make a good impression, to be amiable. So those connections paid off, because a few years later, I got contacted by the creative SVP in that department to come be a character artist in the creative department. And I knew that that's really the only position I could really, that was like the right fit for me. But it was just really hard to break in, because it's just, it's just hard. It was just hard to break in. So I got lucky that there was like an opening, and I felt like an intern all over again, because now I'm like an artist with those artists, you know, and working with
every day, come in.
Yeah. Now I'm working with my heroes, and so it was like being like an intern all over again, kind of learning the ropes, learning like email etiquette and meeting etiquette, and learning how the business worked. Like where does my art end up? Like what is my role in the production pipeline, you know? It was like a really cool job, because the art that I created would go on product. Like it would go on backpacks, it would go on kids' socks, it would go on toothbrushes. And so you had to learn like what kind of how to make your work on different materials, like plastics, fabrics. You know, sometimes I really wanted to like illustrate. So really rendered stuff, or stuff with texture and paints, wouldn't work well like on fabric. It's going to look muddy. And I learned that the hard way at one point. So they work a lot in vector, you know, using vector files like in Adobe Illustrator, like very flat colors. And so you kind of learn how to work with the material. Like this is a great style, but it's not going to look good on like plastic or something.
That's so cool. Yeah, I'd love how you brought up that fact. You know, Flower Street has like a whole history. People are driving down the 5 freeway not knowing, and you go into this environment, and every time you go in, you feel like there's something new. You feel like you're doing the thing, you're learning, as you go in. And did any of these lessons like carry with you as you went on to land your animation roles, or how did that influence your time as you started to grow your footing in animation?
Yeah. Well, you know, being a lifelong Disney animation fan, you know, like, I knew the animation process. I knew how it all worked, but the more time I spent in consumer products, the more I think I kind of like got more farther away from that world, because consumer products is a different world. Some of the principles are the same, like a production pipeline, and that all helped me prepare for my role at Nickelodeon, I think. But yeah, I was just so engrossed with learning at consumer products and learning the business, and you know, loving Disney. Like I just loving any time like to work on a really cool project. What I loved about that place was that I just worked on a diversity of projects. Like one day I'm working on maybe The Lion King, and the other day I'm working on Monsters Inc., or another season I'm working on Toy Story. You know, the library of characters like was just endless. And not only that, I love that I got to draw these characters like in different styles, and that really helped me like to diverse my skill set. Okay, we want Mickey in this like kawaii style or this anime style or whatever. And that applies to like everything. Like maybe we want Toy Story in this Japanese anime style. And so that was a really cool like learning, like a place to learn to kind of adapt to different styles and also just be inspired by everyone else's work too. Or I learned a lot from the graphic designers who produce like these cool graphic badges, like with character and text and pattern making. I just like soaked everything up there, and just having the privilege to work on like the merchandise art for like upcoming movies. Like I worked on The Good Dinosaur character art, Zootopia, Moana, Soul, and the upcoming Encanto from Disney Animation. So that was cool. Like just getting to see the movies before they come out, like seeing like storyboard reels or animatics and seeing like the artwork, seeing the pre-production art was always so cool. Just also learning how they do their work, like, oh, that's interesting. So that's, it's everything you see in art of books it's not the whole picture. Like, you know, they put the like visual development, they're all like building these files, these assets that are going to get passed down to like other artists down the line, like a 3D modeler or someone who has to build the fabrics, and the visual development artists have to call out each piece of fabric and what kind of texture, and how it's built too. It's all very interesting. So around all this time when I was at Consumer Products, I was, I've been going to CTN since like the early 2010s. So I always made an effort to like just have a presence there, because that was just another way of networking, like just having your work there, having business cards, talking with people, meeting with people, and just keeping a pulse like on the animation industry and like what's happening,
Yeah.
And so at one point, I kind of felt like it was time for a change. Like I was getting really excited about everything that was happening in animation, like, with Netflix coming on board and producing all these like unique projects and man, it was just really exciting. And so a few years back, like I started just really trying to focus on my portfolio and like get to the level that I needed to be, get to that industry standard, and also just learning the different types of jobs that there are and learning what it takes to just learning the day-to-day, like what is your day-to-day like what actual skills you need, or so I was learning for character design especially. I was learning that you need to know how to do turnarounds, mouse charts, facial expressions, and then there's different requirements for like a 2D cartoony show or like a 3D show. The turnarounds might be a bit more complex on a 3D show than on a 2D show. And so I would try to attend like workshops, classes, ask questions, and apply that to my work.
And that result for you, like meeting with Nickelodeon and landing your job at Nickelodeon just through those connections at CTN?
Yeah, and Lightbox, and I joined Latinx in animation probably like soon after they were formed, and like I know like in 2019 I went to a couple of events, and so I started meeting like the recruiters there, but also just getting immersed in the animation world, like going to like film panels and just hearing filmmakers talk about their process and how they produce their films. But the whole character design thing, that was, I originally wanted to be a 2D Disney animator. Mm-hmm. And so after I graduated CalArts, that was kind of dying. So I had to shift gears and Steven Silver was a huge inspiration also for me getting into caricatures, because he started out drawing caricatures at theme parks and party and events and things like that, and he eventually transitioned to character design, and he I think encourages people to do caricatures or work in caricatures, because it helps you draw really fast. Sometimes you have to draw 2 or 3 people in 5 to 10 minutes, and you have to capture their essence. It really sharpened your observation, like, okay, what makes this person unique? What is their essence? And you have to capture that really quickly. And also just the shape language, all different types of people that you get to draw, proportions and all that. So that was really inspiring. So I shifted to try to focus on character design, because I kind of was already doing it. I was turning real people into cartoon characters. That's how I always like to see my caricature work. Yeah.
That's so cool. And I know you've talked about networking, and I know that's like the big, bad, scary word. But a lot of our opportunities and a lot of the way you quote unquote make it or find your way into the industry is becoming immersed in that world. And I prefer to call it being immersed in the world rather than networking. Do you have any tips for emerging artists, as they're trying to be seen or trying to connect with people, how to make those genuine relationships?
Yeah, definitely. I think being genuine, it's such a hard balance, because you want to try to get work, you want to be seen, you don't want to be seen as pushy. I think just being a I don't know, pleasant person to be around. I think definitely going to events like Lightbox, CTN, talking with other artists, even just having a conversation about art, I think can be extremely helpful. And having people look at your work, I think that's a constant. I think having a website somewhere where your work lives online, not just social media, which I think is important, but like a website where, because your portfolio is your application in a sense. So you want to have your website be presentable, easy to use. Like I've seen portfolio websites where they're like super fancy, but there was hardly any work on there. And the work wasn't very strong. But the website, everything else, like,
great, yeah.
Wow, this is amazing. And then, I've seen other websites where the functionality is a little wonky, or it could be condensed, like it could just be organized a bit better, but the work was really, really good, and that made me want to keep on clicking. Just, I don't know. I'm just speaking at portfolio websites right now in general. Like labeling your work in the sense that, some people will do like a project like, oh, here's my take on like Little Red Riding Hood or something, right? But you don't know that that's what it is, because there's just kind of a random amalgamation of images, like characters and sets and things like that. Just organize it in a way where maybe you organize it in a like project-based folder, and then in this folder you have character design, in this folder you have props, and you can label that stuff like, okay, Little Red Riding Hood. I think it's good to have maybe like names for the characters, like even just like something name development sketches, or development sketches, and like when another page says final design, and I think the way you organize your art on the page is also important too. I see it's so hard. I'll admit, putting a portfolio together is freaking hard and so annoying.
Hard, yeah. Like we've also lost that tactileness of like rushing to throw it in a like binder and everything, and now it's on the web and it's so much more easier to like move it around, but it's so hard to select things.
Yeah. To me, it's always the compositing of images that's the difficult part, but there's also, there's a sense of design. Like you can have stuff in a kind of 90-40 or You know, it's a good resource, Grizz and Norm's Tuesday Tips. There's a page in their one of their books that has really nice thumbnails of examples of possible portfolio layouts.
Nice.
Um, like one had like a finished painting in the middle, and then on the margins they had like all like the little like thumbnails for that painting, or like a page with like in rows of like different prop options or building designs. You know, you want to make sure your work is like clear to see. Like you want to make sure you know what you're looking at. There's times where I don't know what I'm looking at or why. And like the story, like focus on storytelling and telling a story with your portfolio. Like if your portfolio is a story, like Little Red Riding Hood, you know, try to maybe make a title page and then like introduce the characters. Maybe like a story moment, character explorations, a final design, maybe another story moment, maybe some environment concepts. You know, you're trying to like show the person who's looking at it that you can tell a story through visuals. Mm-hmm. And that all includes, if you're a visual development artist, you know, that's telling a story like through a painting or through painting, composition, illustration, character moments, you know, characters interacting. A lot of people say like look at the art of books and see the examples there, like the kind of work they do, because if that's where you want to go, then try to, you know, move your compass towards that. Like okay, how can I tell a piece of story in one image? How did they do it? You know, but even just looking at those books and seeing how that stuff is laid out too, you know, try to emulate that. I think less is more on a page. You know, you just pick your best stuff. Pick the stuff that makes the biggest statement. Like, here are 3 different designs that I developed for this character, and here's the final. You know, but I admit it's tough. It's like, I feel like there needs to be a whole class on just portfolio composition.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. You mentioned that you were working on your portfolio as well while you were at Consumer Products, mm-hmm. and, you know, making that transition to eventually be at Nickelodeon. And you gave some great tips, which I honestly should write down too before I end this. But, you know, let's round out the rest of your story as well. So, yeah. You know, you're building your portfolio, like learning these tips probably as you go, as you break in, and how do you land at Nickelodeon?
So it's funny is that like I was trying to learn how like character design in TV animation worked. And it was really hard to kind of pinpoint like what someone did like on a daily basis. And on Instagram, I would see these other artists like Jeremiah Alcorn, and he would have these like beautiful black and white pose drawings from like Wander Over Yonder. And they were just like these extreme poses. And I found out later that they're called special poses. And then Mikey, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. She's also a character designer on Casagrandes, and she actually has examples of some of her work that she does, you know, on the daily grind on her portfolio website. And that gave me further insight into kind of what designers do on a daily basis. I would say like 90% of my work is doing special poses. And just quick 101 lesson on what that is. It's taking the storyboards, just extreme drawings in the storyboards that maybe the animation production studio, like the vendor studio, doesn't have like the rig for or something. So you're it's almost like a guide, like draw this pose like this, you know? And then like the rest of it is like maybe doing like turns or doing new costumes on existing characters or doing like new characters as well. But how I got the gig, they reached out to me, and here's the thing, like this is where like having a portfolio or working on a project, you know, that could have a big audience. Being networking, going to events, just putting your work out there, constantly be doing, good work. So they reached out to me, and from what it sounded like, they kind of already knew about my work. And one of those things was my Coco book, a book I illustrated for Disney Publishing a few years back. So they knew some of them had that book. So that was cool. And when I did that book, I really wanted to do like a picture book. I was really getting into illustration when I was at Consumer Products. And one of my art directors there, he knew I think the art director in Disney Publishing. So I just took initiative. Like, no one asked me to do it. Like, I just knew I had to do this. I wanted to, and the only way that I was going to get to do this was to get my stuff in front of someone. So I did a mock Golden Book cover of The Good Dinosaur. Like, I put the logo on there and just made it look like a real little Golden Book cover. I sent it to my art director, and it's like, hey, wouldn't this, what did I even say? I said, like, hey, I did this. And I just kind of the response that I wanted was like, oh, that's cool. I should forward this to so-and-so. And that's what happened. So it was kind of strategic, and and so the art director at Disney Publishing liked it, and they were already doing a Good Dinosaur book. But the next time around, when Coco came around, because I was working on the character art for Coco for the style guide, I did another mock Golden Book, and I sent to my art director, and he kind of already knew of my intentions. Like, I'd really love to do a book. And so he sent it over to Disney Publishing, and then they got the ball rolling. Like, oh, that's so cool. Like, hey, would you be able to do like a sample spread? So I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I had to, based on the very limited art that I had from Coco at the time, because it wasn't all released yet, I had to make up a spread with temp character designs, and they liked it. And I met with them. We had a little small meeting, and they kind of just asked me general questions like, have you ever done a book before and stuff? And I actually I did a book about supermarket food coming to life. It is not related to Sausage Party. It's completely different and rated G.
Wasn't even thinking about that. I was more excited about the supermarket part.
And so that's how I ended up doing the Coco book. And what's cool is that the Coco book was it wasn't the Golden Book. It was like a 6x6 deluxe little book, because at the back they had stickers and little cutouts of alebrijes that I did.
Yeah.
And this was a whole new story about Miguel learning about alebrijes. So there was a great opportunity to design brand new alebrijes with lots of color, and I got to design the interiors of Miguel's house, his living room, which I sort of based off my grandma's living room. It's kind of cool. I also put my grandpa in that book. He's playing one of the guitars. So that book, I think, accomplished, did a lot of work for me that I didn't have to do. I got permission to sell the book at conventions, and that, I feel like that opened a lot of doors for me, honestly. And I think, just, I don't know. I'm not saying be a strategist or something, but I think you kind of have to be a little strategic. If I do this project, it's going to give me great exposure, and kind of reap benefits down the line. It was like an investment almost, and now I'm reaping that investment, because I said, Nickelodeon, I guess, had been following my work, and some of them have my Coco book, and I've been going to the Latinx events and things like that. But I had to do a test still. I did a design test, and which was it was difficult, but it helped me like learn about the show and learn the style and kind of get acquainted with it. And something I'm learning a lot about character design is that you have to work fast. Like you have to do so much drawing so fast, and keep it consistent too. So I'm kind of grateful for all my years in caricature drawing that helped me develop that quick skill.
That's awesome. I think what's an awesome theme throughout like this whole cafecito today is that you always created an opportunity for yourself. And like you said, it's not that you're like vindictively strategizing. You're just seeing where you can open a door or like leave the door open behind you, to either pay it forward or to create the opportunity to keep moving forward, which I really like. A lot of people don't talk about that. They don't talk about the struggle. They don't talk about, you kind of have to like wiggle in where you can, like politely, of course, but showing that, hey, like it can be done. If no one else is here to do it, I would love to take on that opportunity.
Yeah.
And yeah. Sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, I just want to like add to that, like kind of wiggling in. I have my hand in different things, like being in consumer products, like that inspired me to make my own products, and seeing other artists do their products. So like I started not just doing art prints, but stickers and bookmarks and other like little things. But also like trying to work my way in and like doing art shows. Like I really love going to art shows, like especially themed art shows, like for fan art or something, or Gallery Nucleus shows. Like, oh man, I would love to be a part of a Gallery Nucleus art show or something, right? Or I would even like go to like there's a smaller animation expo called Ground Zero. And I remember the founder approached me, and it was a very small, very humble like thing, but I said yes because I wanted to be a part of. I thought it was like just another great way to network and get my stuff out there, and I love that event, and yeah, trying to like get into those art shows, and that required me to like make better work and like make art worthy of like shows like that. But what's funny is that I think the way to get in or to be invited to shows like that is to make work that you like and enjoy, that you're passionate about. Maybe you have a certain technique, or you have like a unique voice on a certain subject. So at some point I got into pet caricatures, pet portraits, all because I drew my own dogs and posted them on Instagram. And someone's like, oh my gosh, can you do my dogs? Awesome. So that was like literally the beginning of my like pet portrait business side gig. And it is nuts. Like I have to like shut it down because I get so many requests, like take breaks. So that was like another cool thing, like, kind of providing, like seeing like an opportunity, like, oh, a lot of people like this. Like, let me see what I can do with this. And I think my wife really encouraged me, like, you should put those on your Etsy, like offer them on your Etsy. So I started posting them on there and started getting a lot of work. To be honest, most of my Etsy sales come from my pet portraits, not my art prints or stickers. So that was really cool. Like to be able to, I guess, entrepreneurize that kind of thing. And a lot of people do it, a lot of people do pet portraits on Etsy. You just have to, it's about like finding like what you like to do, and how you like to do it. And from that, I shared my work on Instagram, my pet portraits, and that ended up getting, I ended up getting invited to a dog themed show at Gallery Nucleus.
That's awesome. Full circle. Look at that.
Yeah, it was called like Dapper Dogs by oh gosh, I'm so sorry that Naomi Romero. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She does a lot of kind of dog themed art, and she was putting it together, and it was so cool. It's like dogs being dapper. That was the theme. And then at another art gallery invited me to participate in a dog or pet themed show, which actually is tomorrow. It's premiering tomorrow. Liana Lynn's Wonderland. It's in Eagle Rock. And every year she has this show co-created by Miranda Dressler, Wonder Pets, where pets are our superheroes. So everyone does like pet themed art, and the proceeds go to like a dog shelter, or like a halfway house for dogs. And that was all because of like my pet portraits, you know. It's just so weird how like things evolve and grow and kind of offshoot into different things. And I think it's just important to like draw things you enjoy, and but also like having a business mindset too. Like it's like, hey, I can do something with this. Like people really like this. I can make, you know, some money on the side, you know, and kind of make this grow. I think having an entrepreneurial spirit as an artist, I think, is really important as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, at the beginning of your talk, you said, you know, people think like our careers are linear, but sometimes to get in, you kind of have to zigzag, go everywhere. Especially with animation, I've noticed you kind of have to bounce around everywhere. Before we wrap up for today, I would love to hear if you had any like final pieces of advice. You've dropped so much wisdom during this cafecito.
I hope so.
Final piece of advice for any emerging designers or professionals trying to break into animation?
Like if you're an artist and you're trying to, you know, reach a level to be able to work like in the animation industry, you know, you gotta be constantly learning, constantly refining. Like we'll never stop learning. Like I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly taking classes. I'm actually going to take like how to draw like fantasy worlds by being inspired from nature, like looking at nature and building like a little fantasy world. So just constantly like learning and taking classes and workshops. So much is available now. It's insane. Like
so much.
Your learning is not restricted to a certain school or an institution. Like you can learn on the internet. You can learn from other artists, YouTube videos. Gosh, there's so much. There's so much to be able to learn. Make a website and make it functional and easy to navigate. Because I'm learning now, like, you know, when we look at portfolios, we have to look at so many, and we have to go through them pretty quickly. So then online portfolios being easy to navigate is really important. And just putting your best foot forward, you know, like, you know, what is the kind of work you want to do and put that up. And also know what kind of work you want to do. Like if you want to work at Disney Animation, kind of tailor your work to that kind of, you know, work. Or if you want to work in cartoons, like in TV, kind of tailor your work to that. And it's okay to have multiple portfolios, you know, like maybe you have one for like more feature stuff or more like TV animation stuff, you know, like most websites are free. So you could have multiple portfolios. What else? Networking, like, yeah, just, you know, be nice, be amiable, be respectful of people's time. At most events, I think the artists are glad to look at your portfolios, you know, and, you know, learn how to take criticism and critique. In animation, you probably will have to do so much revising, and, you know, some of your ideas might not get picked, or etc. Remember that you're on a production, you're working on someone else's vision. So be mindful of that. And I think self-promotion, I think there's so many opportunities to be seen. And so just keep putting your work out there, keep putting out good work. Try to get your work up to that level. You know, look at the work that industry artists are doing and kind of make a goal like, okay, that's where I got to go. That's where I got to get to. Because it is an art form. It's a craft. Like you have to be really, it's really competitive. You gotta have really, you know, your skills have to be up there. And I know it can be intimidating. Just don't be discouraged, you know, um, take care of yourself, live life, you know, our art is so like inspired by life, like
Mhm.
do other things that you enjoy. Like I love coffee and I love going to like different coffee shops, especially indie coffee shops. I just get so much inspiration from just being in the setting. I mean, not lately, but uh, because of COVID, just being in the settings, being around people, people watching, people sketching. I have a friend and I who we recently went out and started going out and sketching again outside in public and going to different museums and just observing the world again. Um, I think surround yourself with people who will be honest with you and give you honest feedback. Like have like a little core story group or like a trust that the people who will encourage you and be honest with you about your work. um, I think that's really important. Um, I don't know
I
if
think
I,
you dropped so much. Like you're good. I don't think you could go anymore. If you could, that's awesome. But I think you dropped so many important things. Not to be discouraged. I really do feel like the people who break in animation are the ones that kept going, and the ones who got back up and had that like group of people to bounce off of. And it was just all everything you said right now, Ricky, was just perfect. I think it was really cool.
you also be self-critical of your work, like not to the point where like I suck, I'll never make it, but like, oh, now looking back at this could be improved. And it's okay to like take something down from your portfolio and like rework it and put it back up. You know, I'm constantly like taking stuff down, putting stuff up, reorganizing stuff on my online portfolio, always trying to let it be the representation of my best work, and
Mm-hmm.
it's okay if like I don't have that little like napkin doodle on my website. Like it's um you could post that somewhere else or not post it. You don't have to post everything. You don't Not
Yeah.
everyone has to see every single drawing you do. Like I know I don't want everyone to see every single drawing I do because they're not all great. Um, but I think I constantly, for me, constantly sketching, like just sketching in my sketchbook is so therapeutic. And uh, sketching anything, like I love sketching architecture. I love sketching plants. I doodle my ideas. I write stories. You know, you don't have to wait for a studio to pick up your story idea for a show. You can go ahead and do it. And develop it because that'll help develop other muscles in your brain, other skills, your storytelling skills, your writing skills. Um, and there's also a lot of software out there that can help you bring it to life. Like um, I also think that helps keep you like balanced. Like if the only thing you worked on was for your employer, I think you would start to get really stale and not be as inspired. Like you have to have something on the side, maybe your own personal project. It could be anything. It could be making stuffed animals or decorative napkins. I don't know.
There we go. That's it. Everyone has to come out of this learning that they should go make a decorative napkin.
I'm gonna Google that because I don't know what that looks like.
Oh, we're gonna have an influx now after this. But thank you so much. That was such amazing wisdom. Thank you so much for spending your time with us here at Latinx in Animation for this cafecito. I hope everyone learned something amazing because I know I have like 10 sheets of paper. I'm gonna go write all of your awesome pieces of wisdom down. And thank you. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of La Leaf.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. It's been awesome.